I envision a sustainable Philippines? Well, I think it all starts with a more conscious citizenry, where people are more conscious about how they eat, how they buy, and how nothing should go to waste. I think when we start with a mindset like that, then we can have a more sustainable Philippines.
A sustainable Philippines is our beloved country flourishing as God intended it to be. Its people are happy, content, progressive, and conscious of their responsibility as good citizens and consumers. Industries protect and respect their workers, as workers protect and respect their employers. Our natural resources are not abused by industry. Instead, they are used wisely and thoughtfully, and even protected so that future generations may have the benefit of enjoying an environment that is hospitable, healthy, lush, verdant, and vibrant, with the flora and fauna that will set it apart from other Asian countries.
A country where individuals and organizations make intentional, responsible consumption and production every single time, where all cities are sustainable and communities meet their own goals without compromising future generations to meet their own needs.
I hope and envision for a sustainable community whereas people of our country share a common purpose, and that is to acknowledge our future without reducing the resources that maintain them. Let us continue to promote, educate, and share with everyone how to better understand and embrace a sustainable living.
I hope for a sustainable Philippines wherein everybody has jobs, there is no poverty, we have responsible government, there is clean environment, and everybody believes in God.
A sustainable Philippines is grounded on life-focused, Bible-centric values that transcends to future generations.
A sustainable Philippines fosters development through human perspective in rights reform, greener environmental considerations, agribusiness partnerships, and strengthens to empower the integrated ecosystem, making impact to the people.
Hello. I envision a sustainable Philippines where we have a clean environment, not only outdoors or in our cities, but also in our workplaces.
I'm Gabby Avante, a biology sophomore from DLSC Manila, and I envision a Philippines that is aware, educated, and willing to take action to pursue a sustainable society for all.
Hi, good evening, everyone, and welcome again to Lucis channel here in Sustainable PH. It's Wednesday again, and we're so glad to see you. We have a very, very interesting topic for tonight. A topic that surrounds, you can call it controversial, and a lot of questions that is circling in our minds will be answered tonight. Hello, Kathy. You are looking great. How are you tonight?
Hello, I'm good. Carlo, you are looking great as well. Saan ka galing? Bakit ka daan?
I just came from El Nido. Ang maganda doon, there's no COVID there.
I know. How is it there pala? Kamusta doon?
Well, Palawan is really nice. For everyone there, if you have the time, you should really go to Palawan. And by the way, what's special about that? We went there, Kathy, Tapos yeah,
Mm.
we took PCR tests, all of us, all
Yeah.
of the guests. And when we got to the resort did not require us to wear face masks and face shields. And there
Yeah.
was no social distancing because all of the guests were negative. However, syempre the
Mm.
servers, the people working in the resort,
The
they
resort
were wearing masks.
to
But
protect you just in case.
shucks, alam mo, parang ano, it was like deja vu. You know, parang it was surreal eh. Para you experience life again like uh those during the
In
time
the old normal.
pre-COVID times. Yeah, the old normal. Na it was so fun. I could not imagine how we could appreciate or the beach if for example we had to wear face shields and masks. But then again, we had a blast. It was such a
Mhm.
great time there. So
Mhm.
how
So for
so there, Gabby.
so you had a semblance of normalcy the way we knew it
Oh
pre-COVID.
yeah, yeah. We had a
Tapos,
semblance of normalcy and I
what
really
you had,
missed it. It was so good.
to ano na lang, wear lang yung dive masks mo, yung masks ninyo, and you went snorkeling as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We went snorkeling. Palawan has a great corals.
Really nice. Yeah.
We went snorkeling with jackfishes. You know, it
Mhm.
was so nice. We visited the lagoons, tas, and there's a sandbar there. It was my first time to go to Palawan and I really enjoyed it. It was super.
I'm so happy for you. Ako naman,
Okay.
wala akong choice. I have to stay home.
You're stuck here in the
I'm
lockdown.
in, I know, I'm in a season of my life where I need to stay home for for a while.
Uh, that
So
that's just a season, Kathy.
I
You'll
know
be
it's
out
not
soon,
permanent. I
of
know.
course.
So yeah, for those who are viewing us for the first time, this is Lucis channel. Lucis means light, and we perceive ourselves as light bringers because we tackle topics on the pandemic. We interview guests from various industries, and we cover topics that are as interesting as what we have tonight. Last week also was very entertaining, although the signal was quite bad. No, we had some
Mm.
technical issues. Our topic last week was promise of forever in a pandemic. So medyo cheesy topic tayo last week. We guested Jason and Aina Baldovino, who got married during the pandemic. And so, syempre, the dream of every bride is to walk down the aisle in white. But wala siyang choice. Well, she was in white as well, but they didn't have a church wedding muna. They had a civil wedding. Kasi they said because of the pandemic, yung funds were affected. And so, ito muna, they're preparing for a bigger celebration, a church wedding eventually. But they didn't delay their plan further. So nakaschedule sila to get married on their anniversary date, and they consulted with their parents, and that's what their parents said. Siguro do a civil wedding na muna and push through
Mm.
with your wedding. And yeah, it was really a fun episode
Yeah.
last week. And tonight, ano tayo? We have actually second time na niya mag-guest. We're so
Mm.
excited to have him back here. He's also in another beautiful resort right now, but he's not on vacation. He's working,
Mm.
and he's going to give us his insights on this very um, timely topic, which Carlo will introduce to us.
Oh yeah, our topic for tonight, Kathy, and to our beloved audience, no, it's COVID-19 vaccines are here. So what is next for the Philippines? COVID-19 vaccines are here. What is next for the Philippines? So alam naman natin lahat, no? There are several vaccines no being developed no sa US. You have Pfizer, you have Moderna. In the UK, AstraZeneca. In Russia, they have Sputnik 5. And then in China, there are several vaccines there. To name a few, there is Sinovac, there is Sinopharm, and these vaccines will be available this 2021. Now, so there, I'm sure, no, all of us, we were disrupted by this COVID-19, and we have lived with the COVID-19 for 1 year now, kasi it's New Year. By the way, Happy New Year for everyone. And
By March pa daw, yung first year. By March.
yeah,
Ay,
March
ano
1st.
nag-start?
No, it started
Oo
January
nga.
talaga.
Yeah.
So it's really 1 year. So next year, the vaccines are here. So ang sensible question, and I'm sure a lot of us are asking these questions. So what do we do now that the vaccines are there? What will the Philippines do now? How will we vaccinate the whole population? Will these vaccines be available to us? And if we are to vaccinate the whole population, when can we complete this vaccination? Kasi we're a lot, we're 100 million. So these questions, we invited he's an expert in medicine. Kathy will introduce our special guest. He appeared before, and it was a very interesting topic also. Then it was about the Spanish flu. For those who was not able to watch that show, no, um, yung Spanish flu, it's a pandemic that hit us on 1918, and then it killed 50 million people. However, there was no vaccine that was discovered for Spanish flu, and then 2 years later, the pandemic ended. Now, what's interesting that I discovered just on that show, our guest, he is a renowned doctor, said, Carlo, alam mo ba yung Spanish flu? Yan yung flu na meron tayo ngayon. So, so
Hindi pa
ibig
rin siya.
sabihin,
Oo.
so it's the same flu, except we already built immunity. So, ang tanong if that's the case that happened before, does that mean that yung COVID will be with us forever? I don't know. So anyway, a lot of questions will be shed light tonight. So
Okay.
Kathy, can you please introduce he's a friend and a very interesting guest.
Carla, but before we have our guest be brought on screen, may tanong lang ako. Will you subject yourself to vaccination kung ready, available na siya sa atin? First
To
batch.
be honest,
Payag ka ba?
no,
Yeah.
to be honest, I'm a bit reluctant to be one of the first to be vaccinated. However, if I'm thinking about the bigger picture, kasi there's no way for our economy to recover unless everyone gets vaccinated. And I think I need to do my share if it will contribute for things to go back to normal. Diba? Kasi when things go back to normal, you should remember this health pandemic is also an economic pandemic. So the sooner this ends, the sooner we go back to normal life, the sooner business will go back to normal. And this 2020, maraming kababayan natin nahirapan with their source of living. So we hope na this by 2021, this can truly end. Kasi baka
Yeah.
naubusan na ng savings ang mga tao and we can no longer survive 2021. So ako, Kathy, answering your question, I do feel reluctant to be the first ones to be vaccinated. However, if I would feel that there is a mass move, kumbaga a mass program by the government vaccinating everyone with the goal of returning life to normal, and thus
Yeah.
the economy would recover, I would do my share and have myself vaccinated too.
Okay. Thanks,
Mm.
Carlo. So we'll see kung after this interview with our guest, kung mag-change yung answer mo.
That's true.
Kasi,
Yeah.
na natin. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, our guest for tonight was a former colleague. He is a specialist in regenerative medicine, research for both hospital-based programs and clinical applications. He utilizes the latest findings and innovations that molecular biology has to offer in optimizing health and human performance through customized micronutrient supplementation, personalized exercise programs, and careful attention to diet and nutrition. He is a medical director and a surgeon, orthopedic surgeon as well. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Ben, ano bang nangyayari sa akin? Dr. Ben Valdecanas. Na-excite lang ako. Hi, Doc Ben.
Hi,
It's
Doc
so good to
Ben.
see you.
Good
Hi, good
evening.
evening,
So
Kathy.
good
Good
to
evening,
see
Carlo.
you.
So good to see you, Doc Ben.
Yeah, I
It's
like
been
the
a while, huh?
introduction, Kathy. Brief and exact.
You know what, Doc Ben? Your last episode that we guested you, that was one of our most interesting episodes. Ang dami namin insights na nakuha sa iyo, Doc Ben.
Yeah. As in, ang tagal pa namin
Oh,
nag-usap
thank
ni
you very
Carlo
much. I'm
after that
flattered.
episode. Yeah. So,
No, actually,
viewers, if you
when you
have
invited me,
questions,
I was yeah. When you invited me, I was reluctant. Mainly because, and this is the caveat, I'm no expert in immune diseases, but I am a molecular biologist, and I will try my best to answer all the timely questions that you might have regarding the topic tonight.
Nako, thank you so much, Doc Ben. You have it. You put it very correctly. Timely questions. Yan yung mga iniisip ng mga tao ngayon. So, Kathy, I guess we should go ahead with the interview with Doc Ben para we can discuss this. There's a lot to be
all
learned.
right.
Sige, Doc Ben, I'll shoot
Sige,
the first
Carlo.
question. No? With a population of 100 million here in the Philippines, Doc, vaccinating everyone will be a logistical nightmare. How do you suggest that this can be done?
Yeah, it's a very good question, but I did not expect that to be our first question. It really is quite challenging to vaccinate most of our population, and there's only one way to go about it. Start with small steps. So government has a program of prioritizing the front good. These ones who are really exposed. Most of the vaccines now, not to get a person immune from it, but from get person more resistant in around to 90%. That means we can have the virus in our system and yet not get sick from it.
Hmm.
That's what the vaccine and
Doc, we're kind of losing you, Doc.
so
Um,
getting the whole population. Sorry. Yeah.
yeah.
So getting
Your
the whole
signal was
population
bad, Doc.
vaccinated should. Oh, I'm sorry. So you have to start with small steps. Prioritize frontliners. Prioritize highly exposed groups. Prioritize those who are at high risk. So the extremes of ages. So these are the people who, when they get infected with the virus, they get sick. And
Yeah.
then those in the middle age population are the ones who have a certain degree of immunity, so to speak, to it. So they hardly get sick. These are the 90 to 95% of the asymptomatic individuals.
Hmm.
So that's what I would recommend. Start small,
Okay.
one group at a time, and then eventually you will be able to vaccinate the whole population. You also have to contend with supply. Of course, initially
Yeah.
we don't expect to get enough vaccines. Yes.
So, in your opinion, Doc, kasi our population is 100 million, and correct me if I'm wrong, no? Each person to be vaccinated takes 2 doses. So therefore, if that's the case, we need 200 million doses of vaccines. Um, do you think that would be a challenge for the Philippines to get this much quantity?
Well, it depends. Of course, I expect it to be a challenge. It depends
Mm.
also on how we will be able to get the supply. You did mention a lot of different brand names, and I hope that they're all as effective and as safe as each other. Although
Mm.
there are quite a number of these brands who are really transparent, and these I can vouch for. The science behind their development is quite sound. So I would probably prioritize getting these brands rather than the others, which are quite
Mm.
questionable.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it depends on the supply. Yeah.
Okay. So yung position nyo, Doc, taken na itong COVID na to has affected us so much this year, no, yung 2020. And we are in a position that we are desperate already. But we should be careful that we should choose the brands. Hindi pwede na parang any brand will do.
That's true. That's why we rely very much on our FDA to do the R&D behind these different brands.
Hmm. I understand, Doc. Thank you so much. Kathy, you have a question? Kathy, you're on mute.
Okay. So since we will be doing the vaccination in batches, so the frontliners first, and those who are seniors or immunocompromised. Doc Ben, upon getting the vaccine, will we still do we still have to wear our mask?
Oh, definitely. Okay, I was about to say, as part of the answer to the previous question, that we should also temper our hopes in what the vaccine can do for us. Like I said, it's not going to prevent us from getting the disease or the illness or the infection, but it will sort of prevent us from getting really sick from it.
Hmm.
So the mask is still the main preventive measure against this virus. So wearing your masks should not change. The culture of that we have
Shucks.
developed of wearing masks should not change. Remember before when SARS one and MERS came about, we were laughing at our Asian brothers and sisters who always wore masks,
Hmm.
and now we're all wearing masks. So
Mm.
it will be a part of our culture for some time to come.
Oh my gosh.
Do the shields really help, Doc? Face shields.
Well, of course, because up to now, the main mode of transmission is still respiratory droplets. So you have a second layer of protection with the face shields. And there's also report that it can also enter through your eye membranes, although at a very much lower incidence. So the face shields can protect you from getting it through your eyes.
Okay. How
And
about
then on
those
top of your
gadgets?
mask, there's a second protection or layer.
Got it. Doc, sorry, I'm just
You
curious
mean the
about those.
ozonators?
Yes, yes, that you wear around your neck.
Uh,
Do they really work?
that's where I probably I do believe on the science behind it again, the theoretical explanation behind it. But these gadgets were never tested scientifically, so that's where I encourage probably my colleagues. This is a very good time to embark on clinical studies on how effective these ozonators or these air purifiers really are.
Hmm.
Okay, thanks, Doc.
Okay. So, like what Doc said, no, si Cathy asked na once we get vaccinated, do we need to still wear mask? Sabi ni Doc, we still need to wear mask. And chances are we would still need to wear face shields and there would still be social distancing. So, that leads us to the next question that when will we go back to normalcy? Baka based on the answers of Doc Ben, medyo matagal-tagal pa yan, everyone. Kahit nandiyan na yung vaccine. Doc, I have a next question. Here's your next question, no? If you would be given a choice which vaccine you will take, Pfizer and Moderna from the US, Sputnik 5 from Russia, Sinovac, and two others from China. Which is your preferred vaccine, Doc?
Well, like I said, there are two brands so far who are very transparent with their methodology and the basis for developing these vaccines. And you mentioned the Pfizer and Moderna are the ones leading as far as
Mm,
this is concerned. And that's why they also got the emergency use application from US FDA.
mm,
I have colleagues in the US who are also molecular biologists, and they
mm.
put their money on the Pfizer and Moderna brand. Now, I think
Okay.
most people in the US get either of these brands depending on the supply again. So if Pfizer
Mm,
supply arrives first, they get the Pfizer brand. But these two
mm,
brands are very transparent in how they develop their vaccine, and I
mm.
really believe in the science behind it.
I understand. Thank you, Doc. Now, Doc, a follow-up question lang, no? Kasi the question is, which vaccine would you choose? Now, from all these vaccines, no, basing on efficacy and safety, would you still stick with Pfizer and Moderna?
It's quite early to say anything about the efficacy and safety, but the way all of these vaccines work is that they um, take a part of the RNA or the genetic material of the virus, the innocuous part or the one that's not causing the disease. And that's what we
Mm,
inject people with to vaccinate them. Now, our
yes.
immune cells are trained to respond by producing antibodies. And this particular genetic material that we get injected with are
Mm,
is the genetic material that codes for the spike proteins that they would as we would call it. These are the
mm,
surface antigens of the virus.
mm,
So in other words, if you get injected with this and vaccinated with this, your body
mm.
gets trained to produce antibodies without having
Yeah.
to get infected by the actual virus. So most of
Mm,
the vaccines out there are developed based on this principle. So they're safe
okay.
relatively or theoretically, considering they're not
Yes.
the disease causing genetic material. And second,
Mm,
efficacy. So far, Pfizer has touted or published that their efficacy is upwards of 95%.
mm,
If you remember, all our influenza vaccines started this way, but of course
mm,
they use a different part of the virus of the influenza virus. And you also have to understand that viruses mutate. We just had this news about the UK strain.
mm.
So
Yes.
as the COVID virus mutates, we have to also develop or change our vaccines. And this is what we do with our influenza virus. That's why we
Mm,
recommend influenza vaccination every year. And the way
yeah.
that they develop these new strains of vaccines is during the summer when it's at its peak. So it's always
Mm,
our advice to get vaccinated with the newer strain of influenza vaccine towards June, July of the year. That's when these new vaccines are released. So I expect the same thing with the COVID virus. As the
mm.
virus mutates and changes, we have to change with it as far as our vaccines are concerned.
I understand. Ako, that's an angle that we did not know, Doc. So, yung nangyayari dito na may bagong strain na sa UK, kumbaga it should prompt us to research again, no, on how to parang create a new vaccine to attend to this. Doc, there was a very interesting question by our viewer, no. Ang
Yeah.
tanong niya, ito, Miss Bella Luwig, thank you so much for asking, what kind of side effect can these vaccines cause?
Well, theoretically, well, first, thank you for that question. Theoretically, these are alien particles or alien proteins that you're injecting to your system.
Mm,
So instead of the desired effect of your body creating or developing antibodies against this, it might react in a more unexpected and probably higher degree of reaction, and you may some sort of a anaphylactic reaction or hypersensitivity reaction to it.
Mm.
That's the only side effect that I would probably expect, theoretically speaking, from these new vaccines.
I understand. Thank you so much, Doc.
Okay. Thank you, Bella. Okay, so my next question is, Doc, which among these vaccines is believed to be the most effective, the safest, and distribution efficient, considering the temperature that they need to be kept in upon administering?
Okay. The same with any other vaccine. These are biologic materials, so they can degrade very instantly with higher temperatures. So, transport and storage is essential. Most of these vaccines, or most of the vaccines that exist now, that we use now, are kept in 4 to 10 degrees centigrade temperature. So maybe the door of a refrigerator. In our laboratory, in our clinics, we always put the biologic materials in the door of our coolers or chillers. So 4
Mm.
degrees to 10 degrees centigrade would be the storage and transport temperature, ideally for these vaccines.
Okay.
Okay, so,
Doc, we check articles na yung Pfizer vaccine, parang ang desired temperature niya is negative 70 degrees. Tapos yun, yung Moderna is negative 40, if I'm not mistaken. Tapos yun, yung AstraZeneca is about, ano lang siya, refrigerator temperature, mga 4 degrees. And the other,
Mm-hmm.
the Chinese vaccine at saka the Russian vaccine as well, I believe. Um, so, do you think this would affect, kumbaga kung napakababa ng storage temperature ng gusto ng Pfizer at saka Moderna, yung administration nito on a massive scale, baka mas feasible ba ang AstraZeneca, pati yung mga Chinese and Russian vaccine?
I think Pfizer and Moderna just placed a wider buffer or safety range for their vaccines. But you have to imagine that a negative temperature in centigrade is frozen. So,
Yeah.
in the same way that your vaccines can be degraded by higher temperature, freezing them or crystallizing them would also harm them in a way. So, this may be a
Ah,
recommended temperature, but I'm sure there is a wide range of allowable temperature. And what's more realistic, and from experience, speaking from experience, the 4 degrees centigrade storage is more feasible and more believable.
I understand. Thank you, Doc. Next question, Doc. Since not all have been tested 100% for their efficacy due to limited time, is it true that some will just make us immune for 3 months, 6 months, or probably a year? Gaano katagal kaya ang effectiveness nito, Doc? Or we still don't know?
Well, yes, definitely we still don't know. Like
Okay.
you said, it has not been tested 100%. And much of the knowledge that we have, for example, this annual influenza vaccination, comes from experience.
Mm.
So we test initial subjects for the presence or absence of antibodies. And from our experience with COVID antibodies, because we've been testing our subjects uh, in preparation for a possible convalescent plasma donation. So we have the technology to measure levels of antibodies. We see that the antibodies diminish after 6 months. So unlike the
Mm.
influenza virus that can probably last a year, and it has to be changed only because of a mutation, the fact that the COVID antibodies that we've seen in the past, from experience this past almost a year, means that we might need to vaccinate more often with the COVID vaccine.
Shucks. Oh my
But this
gosh.
can this can still change, and this is also
Mm.
the basis why the manufacturers recommend a two-shot vaccination schedule. One is to initiate the formation of antibodies, and second is to boost the formation of these antibodies to such a level that it will prevent illness from happening once you get infected.
And
So
how far apart will the two shots be po? No.
It depends on the
How
manufacturer.
far?
It differs basically on
Mm,
the dose of
okay.
genetic material, the capability of the human system to produce antibodies and maintain them. So this can
Doc,
be
let me
anywhere from
confirm.
1 month apart to 3 months apart.
Doc, let me confirm lang what you said. Unlike the influenza virus, itong COVID virus, parang the antibodies, they observe na parang they disappear faster than dun sa influenza. So there's a possibility na every 6 months ang pagbabakuna natin.
Yes, it's a possibility, but it can
Oh my
still change
gosh.
depending on the response of the population to the vaccination itself, to the vaccine itself.
Oh my gosh, Kathy, I just could imagine the logistical nightmare. You have to vaccinate 100 million people in the Philippines. Tapos then, what if, for example, you have to do that every 6 months? I mean, ang
Yeah.
hirap nun.
Mm.
Yeah.
Oh, that's why Doc Ben, ayun
Actually,
nga eh,
it will
this is
diminish.
go
Yeah,
ahead, go Doc.
you don't really need to vaccinate all 100 million of the population. If you've heard of the
Mm,
concept of herd immunity, uh,
yeah.
the whole population gets a certain degree of immunity from certain microbe
Mm,
when 70 to 75% of the population gets infected. And that's what happened with the Spanish flu. We mentioned
yeah.
it in a previous talk. That's why in 2 years' time, the Spanish flu practically evolved and disappeared. It might be lurking as one of the influenza strains that we know now, but it's going to happen the same way with the COVID virus. You have to remember
Mm.
these viruses also need to survive and propagate. So they're not out there to kill their host. We get
Yeah.
sick. The humans get sick from it because of the immune response we have against it. If you've heard of the cytokine storm that is frequently mentioned in people who get sick and practically perish from the disease, it's the body's reaction. Cytokines are the inflammatory mediators of the body
Mm.
that respond in cases of infection.
And that's the reason why you die. I understand.
Par-
Probably
Yes.
your lungs would get inflamed, no?
Parlo, regarding what you said nga, yung logistically it will be very hard nga. But
Yeah.
that's why Doc Ben share lang namin. This is going to be three parts. Our series on vaccines. So you're our guest for tonight from the medical sector, and then next week naman we'll be inviting someone from the government, and then the week after that from the economists naman from the
Yeah.
business sector how they are going to be affected and how they're going to deal with these issues on the
Mm.
vaccine.
Kathy, you have a question, Kathy?
Well, the basic
Mm.
Go ahead, Doc.
the basic concept behind vaccination is to hasten the way that we achieve herd immunity. So if
Mm.
it took about 2 years or more for the Spanish flu, maybe we're trying to shorten it to maybe this year or maybe up to a year and a half again,
Mm.
or another half year for us to achieve the immunity against it. So the concept behind vaccination is to hasten our immunity against the microbe.
Thank you so
Okay.
much, Doc.
Okay. Next question, Doc. Assuming 6 months to a year is the longest that we can get immune each time we take the vaccine, how long will it take for the human race to say goodbye to COVID?
Well, I will answer that in as dramatic as you asked the question. I don't think we will say goodbye to it in the near future. Think influenza.
Oh my gosh.
Influenza has mutated over the past 2-3 decades. Since the 70s, it has been mutating. I
Oh
think
my
it's going to be the
gosh.
same with the COVID virus. Yeah.
Oh
So
my gosh.
we will have to develop newer vaccines against this. There might be a time that we won't need to wear masks anymore because most
Mm.
people are infected even if you catch it. You'll only get sick if your immune system is compromised, and the
Hmm.
vaccine can help with that. So it will be a slow process, but we will get there. I have much faith in the physiology of human immunity.
Thank you so much, Doc. Pero that's a big realization there. So parang this COVID virus, Doc is saying, katulad ng influenza disease, no? Yung parang fever, it keeps on mutating. So itong COVID mag-mutate din na mag-mutate. So it will be with us for quite some time. So, next question, Doc. There are experts saying that even when we take the vaccine, we are immune to the symptoms, but we are still carriers and we can infect others actually. How true is this?
Well, it's very true. The same way the virus is behaving at present, we can, like I said, 90 to 95% of people who get infected are asymptomatic. So you can be walking
Hmm.
around with the virus, not wearing a mask and transmitting it to others. Unfortunately, those you transmit to might not have the immune system that you have. So they will get
Yeah,
sick because of you. So I guess
yeah.
that's enough insight for people to really wear masks. If early on in this pandemic,
We're
I'm
losing you,
sorry,
Doc.
I think they always cut them. Well, yeah, as I was saying early on in this pandemic, we encourage people to wear masks by saying that
Hmm.
we should all behave like we have the disease already or we have the virus already and we don't want to transmit it.
Yeah.
So
So, Doc,
there is a very stark reality that we can be infected and not have symptoms, and we can very much transmit it to other people who are not as immunologically strong as us.
Doc, when we're vaccinated, Doc, does it mean we can be infected, but we won't develop symptoms because we're vaccinated, but we're still infectious to others? Tama ba yan?
Correct. Like I said,
Okay.
the purpose of this vaccine is to prevent severe illness.
Hmm.
So even when you get vaccinated, you might exhibit some, sniffles, maybe a spike in your temperature, but it's not going to maybe put you in the hospital. So
Yeah.
once you have the record of the virus, whether through natural infection or through vaccination, your body is quick to react against it. So
Yeah.
it will prevent the virus, the actual virus, from getting inside your cells and making you sick and recreating itself. So it, the advantage of getting vaccinated is really, uh, well, it cannot be put into words right now, but it will really help
Hmm.
to get vaccinated. Like I said, it hastens and shortens the time for your body to adapt to the infection.
Thank you so much, Doc.
Okay.
Nako,
Carlo, I'll
Kathy.
skip my question kasi Doc Ben answered it already. It's
Okay.
about those who got vaccinated and they are still carriers now.
Yeah. Okay. You can proceed to the next question, Kathy.
Okay. Next question is there. Okay. In the Philippines, hang on. In the Philippines, it's not loading. In the Philippines,
The Chinese vaccine
25.
will arrive April.
Hmm, yeah. Yeah, the Chinese vaccine will arrive in April 2021. Given the vaccination efforts of the government is effective, when will we go back to normal? So we start with vaccination April 2021.
Sorry, what was the question?
Oh, the question is, um, in the Philippines, 25 million doses of the Chinese vaccine will arrive in April 2021. Given the vaccination efforts of the government is effective, when will we go back to normal? What would be the
Oh, okay.
timetable?
Well, it all depends on one, the reaction on how immune we get with the vaccine from China. I don't know much about this brand, but our government seems to be hell bent on getting this brand rather than any other brand. Maybe we can defer to the government person next session and ask him
Mm.
this. But on a medical standpoint, if you are able to vaccinate, let's say 25 million in April, that's a quarter of the whole population. That will not be enough. So it will just be a first step. I don't expect to see any significant change, but I'm hoping that it will decrease the actual number of people getting ill and being brought to the hospital from COVID. So
Okay.
if we do it right and we really prioritize those who are high risk, then a significant change might be in the form of less people getting hospitalized for it.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Doc. Thank you for that answer. Next question, Doc. In the US, 40% would want to be vaccinated, but the other 40% want want ano pa? The other 40% is having second thoughts. Hindi, 40% would want to be vaccinated. The other 40% don't want to be vaccinated. And the remaining 20% are unsure. For the vaccination effort to be successful, majority have to be vaccinated. In your opinion, would the government increase campaign programs to change population mindset? Or is there a chance that the government will make vaccination mandatory, or should they make it
Well,
mandatory?
that's one way of making sure that the vaccination effort really works for the whole population or the whole country. You really have to make it mandatory. So
Okay.
that's one. Second, vaccination itself, in medicine, even among my colleagues, it's a very controversial um, concept. There are doctors who discourage vaccination. There are doctors who push for it. But for me personally, it depends on which vaccine you're talking about. And if I may just talk about the COVID vaccine, number one, the development of this vaccine is different from the development of the other vaccines we had in the past. A lot of those vaccines were stumbled upon, if I may say so. They were
Mm.
discovered by accident. They were um, developed after so many hits and misses or trials. This one is really um, created towards a specific methodology. That's why
Mm.
I can say that the science behind the development of the COVID vaccine that we are now seeing coming out of the market is really sound. Okay, so
Okay.
it should also be up to us, the medical practitioners, to not in play politics, not listen to these conspiracy theories, and try and explain to our patients and to the whole nation that this can be a sound way of hastening and shortening this pandemic.
Mm. Thank you so much, Doc. That
Carlo, I have a follow-up question. So if, for example, the government will make it mandatory for everybody to be vaccinated, so paano yun, Doc? Let's say, ako, I'm scared. I don't believe in the vaccines that came out. Hindi pa. Kasi sabi nga, it takes 5 years to develop a vaccine that's potent, So parang ako, takot ako. So, anong mangyayari? Ikukulong ako. What kind of um, efforts can the government do if it's going to be mandatory? Paano yun pag if you don't really want? Sorry.
Well, I don't really have an experience with government policies, and I don't want even to dabble in it. So
mm.
I don't think it will reach to the point that we will have to have corporal punishment for not getting the vaccine. But for me, mandatory maybe meaning that it will be made available to you, but you still have that's where human rights will enter again. Yeah, you still
That's
have
right.
the right to refuse it. But by mandatory, I mean it should be made available to everyone.
Mm.
Okay. All right.
Thank you,
Okay.
Doc.
Thanks, Doc.
And then like the reason I mentioned that this vaccine was not created in the same way that the vaccines of the past were. It means that it doesn't really need to take 5 years to develop a vaccine. Once we're very sure of the methodology, the mode of action, uh, then I think that will suffice for clinicians and scientists in our field.
Hmm. Thank you, Doc. Kathy, do you have a question? Hello, Kathy. Wait, did Kathy freeze? Okay, I'll ask you, Doc, the next question. If we are not able to vaccinate everyone, up to what percentage of the population should be vaccinated to achieve herd immunity?
Uh, well, theoretically, it's 70 to 75%. So a third of the population should have been infected to achieve herd immunity. So
Okay.
by saying that, it doesn't mean that you have to be vaccinated. It could be by natural infection.
Okay.
So having been exposed to the virus, whether or not you develop symptoms, is one way that you already develop immunity to it.
I understand.
So
I
maybe
have a
we can
question.
also yes.
If kunyari
Yes,
a
sorry.
person who
Maybe we
had
can also
COVID,
yeah. Go ahead.
uh, sir, question, a person who had COVID, no, tapos and was asymptomatic, does this mean that that person has somewhat built immunity versus COVID if he or she would get infected again?
Yes, there's a very big chance that the reason why the person did not develop symptoms is because his or her immune system was able to respond promptly to the infection.
Hmm.
So if a person has that kind of immune response, then successive infections would be a lot less serious, unless the person enters into a stage of his life wherein his immunity becomes compromised for
I
some reason
understand.
or another.
Thank you so much, Doc. Kathy, for our last question, Doc, we've been learning a lot, and I'm sure our audience, no, maraming mga tanong that is lingering to everybody's minds, no, nasasagot tonight. Kathy, the last question that we have, kindly ask, Doc. Kathy, you're on mute.
There are experts that say that other countries will intentionally slow down their vaccination program in their countries to observe other countries that are implementing vaccination programs at full speed, waiting if there are side effects. Is this smart and should we do the same thing?
Um, I do not recommend doing that. That's for sure. Number one, you cannot wait long enough for all the side effects to appear. Okay, you probably might see a lot of those, but for me as a scientist, if I don't see the side effects that I expect on a theoretical scale, I'm good with that. So,
Okay.
but waiting for other countries to exhibit side effects on their own because of their aggressive move for vaccination is not really a very sound clinical method.
Hmm. I understand.
You have to remember that the vaccine was developed to shorten the pandemic and
Hmm.
to increase the rate at which we achieve herd immunity. So the longer you wait, there's no point in even considering the vaccine.
Right.
Thank you so much, Doc. Naka, it's so good to have you back, Doc. You answered very well all our questions, and things got so much clearer to me, and I believe to everyone else. How about you, Kathy?
If the viewers have any more questions, please write in the comment section your questions na pahabol. Baka meron
Hmm.
pa. But I'm pretty sure nasagot na ni Doc lahat yung yung mga questions that have been lingering in our heads these past days. Lalo na ngayon, Doc, kasi di ba, the families are all together now for the Christmas season and for the New Year. So, yun ang topic ngayon eh. Yun ang topic talaga ng families eh. So yeah, thank you so much for shedding light on a lot of these issues, Doc Ben. And yeah,
Thank you for having me again. Glad to be here.
thank you. We'll invite you
Thank you
again
so
soon.
much, Doc.
Ma-
You're
You have a good
welcome.
night and stay safe there in the island.
Take care. Happy holidays, Doc. Thank you.
Happy
Regards.
holidays.
Thank you. Yeah. So, Carlo.
Okay.
So,
That was so good.
Carlo, there's this question from Bella Luig. How much would the vaccine cost? Alam mo, may na-pull
Um,
out akong file dyan. It was
okay, go
Rex who
ahead.
posted eh. Yeah.
Hmm.
From Rappler itong source na to. AstraZeneca, 510. Total price for the 2 doses na yun. 610. Novavax, 366. Pfizer, 2,379. Moderna, 3,904 to 4,504. Sinovac, 3,629.50. Gamaleya or Hamalaya, 1,220. And COVAX facility, 854. So yung cheapest is Novavax, 366. 2 doses na yon. And then the most expensive is Moderna, 3,009 to 4,500. So yun. So may
Actually,
idea tayo.
take note with that prices. We're getting Sinovac, diba, this coming May.
Mm,
25 million doses which are coming. Ang
yeah.
presyo niyan is about 3,000 a dose. And ang
Yeah.
efficacy ng Sinovac, it's reported at 50% only.
Mm,
So, um, shucks, kita yung Pfizer is reported at 94% efficacy. Ang presyo niya is about 2,000 something. So magkalapit lang sila ng presyo. So I don't know
mm,
if we're getting a good deal getting
mm,
Sinovac. It
mm,
depends on our government. And I
yeah.
am sure no, they're studying it. Pero 50% effective lang yan. So,
Mm.
so
So
there.
there's a
Uh,
comment here. Carlo, you want to read the comment by Miss
Yeah,
Bella?
si Bella Luwig said that was an informative video. Such a good idea to invite an awesome doctor. Nako, si Doc Ben, Miss Bella, is really awesome. Kaya we were so excited to have him back. Talagang he's an expert in his field. Tapos yan, he just has all the answers to all our questions, and some of the questions are really hard, pero we believe these questions are so relevant now eh. Ito yung
Right.
iniisip ng mga tao. So okay, so Kathy, what's your takeaway
Yes.
for tonight? Jasper
Um,
Christine Lim,
so
hello
there's one more. Hi,
Christine.
Christine. Oh, by the way, we have another show. It's a devotional show. Every Saturday at 10 a.m. and we have Miss Christine Lim as our guest. She will share with us her Bible devotion this Saturday. And that's Breakfast with the King, wherein we have Miss Karen Davila as our mainstay guest. So she guests once a month. So maybe we can also have Doc Ben share his devotion to us,
Oh
his Bible
yeah, why
reading.
not?
Diba?
Yeah.
Doc Ben, invite ka din namin para we can see another side to Doc Ben. Hindi naman yung tungkol sa lagi natin siyang sinustorbo about the pandemic. So this time naman about his faith. So, yeah, our takeaway ko for tonight, well, grabe, kasi parang hindi pa kasi tapos yung natutunan natin tonight. That's why I really like your idea of inviting also someone from the government and someone from the business sector to shed light on a lot of questions. Kasi ang daming topic dito na na-open nga sa mga family gatherings na yun na nga, na Carlo hindi daw kaya bumili ng Pilipinas ng vaccines enough for us, na some of the richer countries will be hoarding these vaccines. So yung third world countries will have not enough stocks, yung mga ganyan. We don't know how true these reports are. And then the next would be, yun na nga, next year, marami daw mga businesses lalo magpo-close. Although nag-restart tayo, um, pero ano pa rin, may bagong lumabas na strain. So there's so much maraming hindi pa sure next year.
Yes.
Pero ako honestly, I'll just go back to my faith na ako, Lord, you have, the Lord has created us. He allowed these things to happen. These didn't come from God, but if something is beyond me, ganun ako, then it's not for me to solve. It's for God to solve it for me. As far as taking the vaccine is concerned, kung papayag na ba ako, kung ano yung sabihin ni Doc Ben, dun ako. I have his number on speed dial. So kung
Yes.
ano yung stand ni Doc Ben, dun ako.
Okay. Thank you
Yun.
so much, Kathy. Totoo yan sinabi mo. Nako, for my takeaway, siguro I want to summarize, key points na minention ni Doc Ben. Number one, um, pag nabakunahan ka, sinabi ni Doc Ben, unlike the influenza virus, yung bakuna, no, uh, it showed na you would have immunity for 1 year. Pero dito sa COVID virus, no, it showed that your antibodies will go away after 6 months. Well, based on observation of scientists. So therefore, based on Doc Ben, there is a big chance that we need to get vaccinated again. Kumbaga yung vaccination process na to will be every 6 months. So that's one. And then number two, the COVID virus, like the influenza virus, will continue to mutate. That what happened in the UK, wherein the virus mutated, it's not an isolated case. Doc Ben was not at all surprised because he said the virus will continuously mutate. Now, it means that there should be continuous developments of new vaccines to address this new mutated kind of COVID virus. So continuous din yung development. So ganun ang mangyayari, I think, sa buhay natin. We will be vaccinated every 6 months. Tapos yan, the R&D, research and development of vaccines, ongoing yan. New vaccines will continuously come out to address yung mutated versions that has come out and that will come out in the future of this COVID-19. Now, si Doc Ben also mentioned that when you get vaccinated, you will still become a carrier. You can be infected by the COVID-19 virus. However, you will not develop symptoms anymore. And if you do develop symptoms, probably it is not life-threatening anymore because you have the vaccine. However, you can still infect others. Now, this means that you cannot do away with the mask, the face shield, and social distancing. So this gives us, parang it manages our expectations na kailan ba tayo babalik sa normal. The answer to that is, even though nandiyan na yung vaccine, going back to normal, when we talk about normal, ganito there are no masks, there are no face shields, there's no social distancing. We can go to movies and watch there. So we have no worries about the virus. If there are concerts or sports events, we can go there. Yung katulad ng before. The answer to that is, medyo malayo-layo pa yan. Medyo malayo-layo pa yan kahit may vaccine. Kasi kahit may bakuna ka, nakakahawa ka sa iba eh. So, social distancing pa rin at saka mga face mask. So, I think yan, and last, no, sinabi ni Doc, which is vital, no, we've been reading in articles that the normal time it takes to develop vaccines is about 5 years. Some say it's 10 years. Pero sabi ni Doc, yung development ng mga vaccines na to are more of accidental. In his own words, sabi niya, they were stumbled upon. Pero ang pag-develop ng COVID-19 vaccine is more intentional. So, kaya sabi niya, natapos in a year kasi it's intentional. And he says he believes in the method on how these vaccines were made. So, he himself has faith in these vaccines. So, I believe tayo rin, listening to an expert, at least that puts aside a lot of our worries. At least, we have worries kung may side effects ba to, is it safe? Kahit papano, that is words of reassurance for us na medyo safe din naman to kahit madali ang development. Kasi yung method naman, sabi ni Doc, which was used to develop this, was sound. So there. So yan, I think, ang mga realizations natin based on this conversation. And lastly, sabi ni Doc Ben, herd immunity, 75% of the population, at least 75% has to be vaccinated. Else we won't achieve herd immunity. So that's the minimum number. So 100 million tayo, 75 million kailangan na bakunahan. And to add to that, sabi niya, kasi that we have to vaccinate 75 million, else herd immunity will not happen, the government should make it mandatory. Ako personally, I believe that Kasi kunyari, the vaccines are available. However, a large number of the population would refuse to get vaccinated, and we don't hit that minimum number of 75%. These efforts in vaccinating and trying to end the pandemic will just not work. So sayang lang ang efforts ng lahat. Sayang yung research and development for the vaccine. Kaya ang sagot ko kanina kay Kathy, tinanong niya ako, are you willing to be vaccinated? Well, if I'm thinking about myself only, of course, I feel reluctant. I have second thoughts of getting the vaccine. I'd rather wait and see the effects on other people.
Parang yun yung last question natin, no?
Yeah,
yung
totoo yun.
muna natin kung ano yung
Totoo
effect
yun.
sa iba. Yeah, totoo.
Yes, totoo yun. Kasi it's your life involved eh. But on the other hand, if you're thinking of the greater good, napaka-cliche, no? Greater good. But if you're thinking about the greater good, and we are trying to move forward in trying to put an end to this pandemic, sabi ko, I do my part and get vaccinated because my little effort in vaccinating myself would bring us closer to reaching that 75% threshold na kailangan ma-vaccinate sa population. I'll be part of that 75 million. So para ma-achieve natin ang herd immunity. So there.
Right.
Okay?
So seryosong usapan ni Carla. So,
of course. Ikaw naman, Kathy. You underestimate me so much.
So, wala lang. So, ibig sabihin, hindi pa magno-normalize yung mga theaters, concerts, wala pa. So, talagang everyone has to go digital na for the concerts and then for movies.
Yun ang meaning.
So anong mangyayari? Pay-per-view na nga talaga. So speaking of that, so yung Wonder Woman, Superwoman. Si Wonder Woman is showing already. Libre lang siya.
Ay, kita mo yan. Imagine that, that's a big production, Wonder Woman 1984, Wonder Woman 2 yun. Imagine mo, nilabas na lang nila sa Flick Store.
Yeah.
Diba? Nakalabas na lang, you can watch it free. So I don't know how I'm sure lugi yung yung studio na nag-produce nun, 'di ba? So,
Ang
well,
question ko, why didn't they
how it
opt
is,
for
eh.
pay-per-view?
I really don't know, Kathy.
Para bumalik yung
Pero
capital nila somehow. That's
I
that's
really
the
don't
question.
know. Pero
So siguro next time let's guest someone from the movie industry then
pero
about these
that's how it
things.
is, eh. 'Di ba yung
Mm,
movie, the other movie lately, Mulan, kakalabas
mm,
lang. That's a big movie also. I watched it. Pinalabas lang nila sa Disney Plus on TV. Kasi
mm,
yung Wonder Woman, I know that they tried to wait it out.
mm,
Kaya lang, ang tagal ng COVID, hindi mo rin kaya i-delay too long, eh. Alam mo yun, na-delay na nila for a year. They
mm.
were forced to just show it. Pero lugi
Yeah,
yun. Ang
yeah.
sunod na malulugi, I think, is Batman ni Robert
Mm.
Pattinson. Yan.
Oo nga,
Kasi tinamaan
right.
ng COVID, gawa na yung Batman. Eventually, isi-show din nila yan on TV. Ganun na lang yan.
Mm. Yeah.
So, well, that's the new
Oh
normal.
well,
It's
you
good
just need
for
to
us
adapt.
kasi
I
rather
know.
than paying 140 pesos sa sinihan, so at least we just watch it on TV.
For free.
Ang labo, eh, no? Sige. Okay,
Okay.
Kathy.
Thank you so much again, Doc Ben, and thank you to our viewers, those who watched us on live and those who will be watching us on replay. Keep watching Lucha's channel on Sustainable PH, and on Saturday, please watch Breakfast with the King. That's with Miss Christine Lim. Thank you so much,
Yes.
Carlo.
Thank
God
you.
bless you. Good night.
God
Thank
bless you, Kathy.
you.
God bless everyone. Bye-bye.